How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, December 18th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I am going to review yesterday's Elite matchups and performances, and I am going to preview what's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Taking a step back at where we are, today is the World Cup final as there are 2 teams left competing for the World Cup as there were 32 teams that entered Qatar. In college football, we would see some bowl games happen yesterday as there were none that happened today. Taking a look at what happened with college basketball, we would see the number 2 team in the nation lose, as well as the number 4 team and the number 6 team, as there was a lot of action going on. There were 3 NFL games, including the biggest comeback in NFL regular season history, of course starring Matt Ryan on the other end. There was some NHL and some NBA matchups going on as well, as we're still in the beginning part of the season. Taking a look first at what happened yesterday in the 3rd place game of the World Cup, Croatia would face off against Morocco after finishing 1-2 in Group F. The difference would be that instead of drawing with Belgium, Morocco, who finished top of the group, would end up beating Belgium as they both ended up drawing against each other. Looking at how Morocco would make it to the semifinal round, at least, or up until this game. In the round of 16, they would beat Spain 3-0 off of penalty kicks, as after both teams went 120 minutes scoreless. In the quarterfinal round, Morocco would beat Portugal 1-0 with a goal from Youssef En-Nesyri at the end of the first half. Morocco's loss in the semifinals would come to France after they gave up a goal to Theo Hernandez in the first half and Randal Kolo Muani in the second half. Looking at how their opponents, Croatia, would get here, once they made the round of 16, Croatia would end up beating Japan 3-1 in the round of 16 in the penalty kick shootout. In the quarterfinal round, Croatia would tie with Brazil 1-1 to beat Brazil 4-2 on penalties, for Croatia to lose in the semifinals to Argentina 3-0. They would give up 2 goals in the first half, one off of a penalty kick to Lionel Messi, and the second would be to Julian Alvarez, as Alvarez would complete his brace in the 69th minute. Going into the 3rd place game, Croatia would end up beating Morocco 2-1, as all 3 of the goals this game were scored in the first half. Croatia would strike first with a goal from their defender Josko Gvardiol in the 7th minute. Atraf Dari would score 2 minutes later for Morocco to even it up, and then Croatia's Mislav Orsic would score in the 42nd minute so that Croatia could run away with this win. With this win, Croatia will be 3rd place medalists for the 2nd time in World Cup history. The previous time that they would be named 3rd place finishers was in 1998. The highest place they would ever finish was in 2018 in the last World Cup, as they finished as runners-up. With this loss, even though they lost in the semifinal round, this is still the best ever appearance for Morocco in the World Cup since they first qualified in 1970. So, of course, congratulations for both teams for making history. Now, of course, segueing into what's going on today. Today is going to be the World Cup final, as France will face off against Argentina. Both of these nations have won the World Cup 2 times prior. Looking at Argentina first, the 2 times that they would win prior to this World Cup would be in 1978 in Argentina. They would win in 1986 in Mexico as well. The last World Cup would see them get eliminated in the round of 16 by France, as that was the game in which Kylian Mbappe would score 2 goals and Benjamin Pavard would score 1 for them as well, alongside Antoine Griezmann, as France would beat Argentina to go on and eventually win the entire tournament. So that's how after getting knocked out in the round of 16 last time, Argentina would win their group to make it into the knockout stages, as they would win Group C. After losing to Saudi Arabia, they would beat Poland and then Mexico. Once they would make the round of 16, Argentina would end up winning their first match versus Australia 2-1, as their 2 goals came from Lionel Messi and Julian Alvarez. In the quarterfinals, Argentina would beat the Netherlands after both teams would tie at 2 and then go to penalties. Argentina's 2 goals in regulation would come from Nahuel Molina and a penalty kick from Lionel Messi. And then in penalty kicks, it was Lautaro Martinez who finished it for Argentina. In the semifinal round, Argentina would beat Croatia 3-0. Their first goal would be a penalty kick from Lionel Messi, as their next 2 goals will come from Julian Alvarez in both halves. And of course, looking at how their opponents would make it to this round, France are two-time champions in the World Cup, as they had won it in 1998 for the first time. In France, they would win it for the second time the last World Cup around in 2018 in Russia, as they would beat Argentina along the way and then eventually beat Croatia in the finals. Entering this year's World Cup, they would finish at the very top of Group D after beating Australia and Denmark for their first two matchups, just to eventually lose to Tunisia. Once France would make it to the knockout stage in the round of 16, they would beat Poland 3-1. Their first goal would come from Olivier Giroud, as he would become France's all-time goal scorer, as they would have two goals in the second half from Kylian Mbappe before Robert Lewandowski would score off of a penalty. After that, France would go on and beat England in the quarterfinals 2-1. Their first goal came from Aurélien Tchouameni, as Giroud would score in the 78th minute to break the 1-1 tie before Harry Kane would miss his second chance. In the semifinal round, France would end up beating Morocco 2-0. Their first goal came from Theo Hernandez, as Randall Kolo Muani would score in the 79th minute. So, of course, France versus Argentina is going to be a highly anticipated matchup, as you have Lionel Messi, who is nearing the end of his career as one of the greatest soccer players to ever play, if not the greatest, against Kylian Mbappe, a player who is definitely starting to form an amazing narrative of his own, considering just being older than I am at 23. So, of course, that is what the World Cup is looking like. Now that Croatia is the third place team, we now have to see who's 1 and 2. Taking a look at what's going on here in the U.S., in bowl season, the only ranked bowl team that would play would be the 14th ranked Oregon State Beavers. They would face off against unranked Florida at the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Oregon State would beat Florida 30-3, as they would shut Florida out for the first three quarters, outscoring them 23-0. They would outscore the Gators 7-3 in the fourth quarter, basically running the game. On the losing end of this matchup, the Florida Gators were led out in passing by Jack Miller III. Their freshman out of the state of Arizona would end up throwing for 180 yards. He would also rush for 13 yards, so he had 193 yards of offense. Florida's leading tackler on the defensive ends would be Derek Wingo, Rashad Torrance II, and Amari Burney, as each would have 8 tackles. Derek Wingo, who was one of those players, would have one of the team's 2 sacks all game. On the winning end of this matchup, the Oregon State Beavers would be led in passing by their freshman out of Newbury Park, California, Ben Gulbranson. He would end up throwing for 165 yards and a touchdown. He also had 15 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown, giving him 180 yards and 2 touchdowns of offense for the day. In Oregon State's running back core, their leading rusher would be Deshaun Fenwick. Their junior from the state of Florida all the way across the country would finish with 21 carries for 107 yards. Oregon State's leading receiver would be Silas Bolden. Their sophomore from Rancho Cucamonga, California, would finish with 6 receptions for 99 yards, as he had a receiving touchdown. Oregon State's leading tackler on the defensive end would be Kyrie Fisher-Morris. Their senior linebacker out of Oklahoma would finish with 11 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and he would have one of the team's 4 sacks. With this win, the 14th ranked Oregon State Beavers will finish their season with a 10-3 record, after having finished with the 5th best record in the Pac-12 at 6-3, tied with UCLA. With this loss, the unranked Florida Gators will finish their season with a 6-7 record, after having finished with a 3-5 record in the SEC, tied with Kentucky, Missouri, and Arkansas. Of course, segueing into the next bowl game that would have taken place yesterday, taking a look at what would happen in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, unranked Louisville would face off against unranked Cincinnati in Fenway Park in Boston. Louisville would outscore Cincy 21-7 in the first half and then 3-0 in the second to win this game 24-7 for their 8th win of the season. On the losing end of this matchup in Fenway, the Cincy Bearcats were led out by their starting quarterback, Evan Prater. Their sophomore out of the city of Cincinnati would finish with 83 passing yards and a passing touchdown. Cincy's leading tackler on the defensive end would be Ivan Pace Jr. Their senior out of the city of Cincinnati would finish with 16 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a sack. He would have the team's lone sack of the game. The two teams' interceptions would go to Armarion Smith, as Smith would have 5 tackles, and then Javon Hicks, as Javon Hicks finished with 7 tackles for the Bearcats. On the winning end of this neutral site game, the Louisville Cardinals would be led out by their starting quarterback, Brock Doman. Their junior out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, would end up throwing for 132 yards as he threw a touchdown and an interception. Louisville's leading rusher would be Maurice Turner. Their freshman out of Nichols, Georgia, would finish with 31 carries for 160 yards of offense. Louisville's second leading rusher would be Jawar Jordan. Their sophomore out of Chandler, Arizona, would finish with 9 carries. He had 115 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 11 yards through the air, giving him 126 total. Louisville's leading tackler on the defensive side would be Monty Montgomery. Their senior out of Norcross, Georgia, would finish with 8 total tackles. He had a tackle and a half for losses. He had a sack. Yasir Abdullah and Yaya Diaby would each finish with a sack and a half, as well as Louisville combined for 7 sacks as a team. With this win, the unranked Louisville Cardinals would finish their season with an 8-5 record. After having finished with a 4-4 record in their conference, the ACC, this year, tied with Syracuse, North Carolina State, and Georgia Tech. With this loss, the Cincy Bearcats would finish their season with a 9-4 record, after tying with UCF for the second best record in the conference at 6-2 this year. Of course, segueing into what was going on in the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, unranked Fresno State would face off against unranked Washington State. Fresno State would beat Washington State 29-6 for their 10th win this year. They would shut Washington State out in the first half, 16-0, then outscore the Cougars 13-6 in the second half to run away with this bowl game win. On the losing end of this matchup, the unranked Washington State Cougars were led out by their starting quarterback, Cameron Ward, out of West Columbia, Texas. Cameron Ward would end up throwing for 197 yards as he threw an interception. Washington State's leading receiver would be Robert Farrell, as he had 10 receptions for 65 yards on the day. Washington State's leading tacklers would be Armani Marsh and Jaden Hicks, as they each had 7 tackles. On the winning end of this matchup, Fresno State would be led out by their starting quarterback, their senior out of Danville, California, Jake Haener. Jake Haener would throw for 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fresno State's leading rusher would be Jordan Mims. Their senior out of East Palo Alto, California, would have 18 carries for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 27 yards through the air as he had 236 yards of offense. Fresno State's leading receiver, Nico Ramigo, out of Orange, California, would be their leading receiver. He had 5 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. Zane Pope, Fresno State senior out of Moore Park, California, would have a receiving touchdown himself as he had 4 receptions for 62 yards. Fresno State's leading tackler would be Carlton Johnson. Their junior out of Moreno Valley, California, would finish with 10 tackles as he had a tackle for loss. Devo Bridges out of Rialto, California, would finish with 8 tackles as he had 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. Fresno State would combine for 6 sacks as a unit as LJ Early had the team's only interception alongside his 3 tackles. With this win, the unranked Fresno State Bulldogs would finish their season with a 10-4 record after finishing with a 7-1 record in conference play and after having beat Boise State for the conference championship. And then, of course, with this loss, the unranked Washington State Cougars are 7-6. They would finish their record with a 4-5 record in the Pac-12, which would be the 7th best record out of 12 teams in the entire conference. Of course, but they did qualify for a bowl game, so of course, congratulations to them. Looking at what would happen in the Lending Tree Bowl, unranked Southern Miss would face off against unranked Rice. Southern Mississippi would beat Rice 38-24 as they would win this game by 2 touchdowns. The Golden Eagles would outscore Rice 17-3 in the first half before both teams would score 3 touchdowns in the second. Going into the fourth quarter, the game would be tied at 24 before Jason Brownlee's 26-yard touchdown pass from Trey Lowe to give Southern Miss the lead, the outright lead. On the losing end of this matchup, the Rice Owls were led in passing by their starting quarterback, A.J. Padgett. Their freshman out of Frisco, Texas, would end up throwing for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns. Rice's leading receiver would be Isaiah Esdale. Their senior out of Newark, Delaware, would finish with 3 receptions for 83 yards as he had 2 receiving touchdowns. Rice's leading tacklers would be Josh Percy, Trayshawn Chamberlain, and Myron Morrison. They each would all finish with 7 tackles total. Josh Percy, Rice's sophomore linebacker out of New Jersey, would finish with a tackle and a half for a loss, as well as he had a sack, one of the team's 2. On the winning end of this matchup, Southern Miss would be led in passing by their junior out of Tennessee, from the state of Tennessee, Trey Lowe. Trey Lowe would throw for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 7 yards on the ground to give him 177 for the day. Southern Miss's leading rusher would be Frank Gore Jr., their running back out of Miami, Florida, who is currently a sophomore. He would have 21 carries for 329 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. He would also combine for 19 passing yards as he had 348 total yards of offense. Southern Mississippi's leading receiver would be Jacarius Caston. Their junior out of Natchez, Mississippi, would finish with 4 receptions for 94 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. Jason Brownlee, the Golden Eagles senior out of West Point, Mississippi, would finish with a receiving touchdown himself alongside 3 receptions for 72 yards. Southern Miss's leading tackler would be Dalen Gill. Their senior linebacker out of Louisville, Mississippi, would finish with 11 tackles. He had 3 tackles for loss and 3 sacks for the team. The team would combine for 5 sacks as the team's lone interception would go to Jay Stanley, who had 3 tackles, half of a tackle for loss, and he would have half of a sack as well. With this win, the unranked Southern Miss Golden Eagles will finish their season with a 7-6 record after having finished with a 4-4 record in the Sun Belt, the 6th best record in the conference. On the losing end of this matchup, the unranked Rice Owls will finish their season with a 5-8 record. Their 3-5 record would be tied with UT El Paso for the 4th worst record in their particular conference. Now, moving on really quickly to show you what's going on in the New Mexico Bowl. Unranked BYU would face off against SMU in a game that would be a lot closer for comfort than both teams would care to admit. Both teams would score 10 points in the first half. BYU would outscore SMU 14-13 in the second half in order to win this game. SMU would score a touchdown with less than 10 seconds left, but they would fail the 2-point conversion in order for BYU to run away with this bowl win. On the losing end of this matchup, the SMU Mustangs were led out by their starting quarterback, Tanner Mordecai. Their sophomore out of Waco, Texas, would throw for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. SMU's leading rusher would be Tyler Levine. Their senior out of Cedar Park, Texas, would finish with 23 carries as he had 91 yards and a rushing touchdown. He had 25 yards through the air as he had 116 total yards of offense. SMU's second leading receiver, Roderick Daniels Jr., their sophomore out of Duncanville, Texas, would finish with 54 receiving yards off of 6 receptions as he had a touchdown. Jordan Curley, their junior wide receiver out of Austin, Texas, would finish with 50 receiving yards as he would finish with 6 receptions, and one of those receptions was a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, SMU's leading tacklers were Shannon Reed and Jimmy Phillips Jr. Shannon Reed would finish with the team's lone sack and the team's lone interception as well. On the winning end of this matchup, the unranked BYU Cougars were led out by their starting quarterback, Sol J. Maiva Peters. Their freshman out of the state of Hawaii would end up throwing for 47 yards as he would throw an interception. He was the team's leading rusher as he had 96 yards on the ground, giving him 143 yards of offense. His lone touchdown will come on the ground as well. Christopher Brooks, BYU's senior running back out of Oceanside, California, would finish with 19 carries for 88 yards as he had a rushing touchdown. BYU would be led in tackles by Ben Bywater. Their sophomore out of Salt Lake City, Utah, would finish with 11 tackles, as well as the scoop and score to win BYU, or to give BYU his 76-yard pick six in order to give the BYU Cougars the outright lead to run away with this game. With this win, the unranked BYU Cougars are 8-5. They are an independent team, so they did not particularly finish within a conference. However, with this loss, SMU would finish with a 7-6 record. Having finished with a 5-3 record in the American Athletic Conference, they finished their season tied with Houston for the fourth best record in their football conference. And then, of course, last but not least, looking at the last bowl game that would be played yesterday, Boise State would face off against North Texas in the Frisco Bowl, served by ServPro. In this matchup between unranked teams, Boise State would beat North Texas 35-32. North Texas would outscore Boise State 10-6 in the first half. Boise State would outscore North Texas 29-22 in the second half. A good amount of back and forth, but Boise State would take the outright lead in the third quarter off of Taylon Green's 19-yard touchdown run. On the losing end of this matchup, the North Texas Mean Green were led out by their starting quarterback, Austin Allen. Their junior out of Argyle, Texas, would end up throwing for 238 yards, as he would finish with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Stone Earl, North Texas' sophomore quarterback out of Keller, would end up throwing for a touchdown as well, as he threw for 21 yards. He would also go on and finish with 20 yards of offense, as he had 41 total. North Texas's leading rusher was Ikaika Ragsdale. Their sophomore out of Las Vegas, Nevada, would finish with 21 carries for 94 yards, as he would finish with 2 rushing touchdowns on the day for the team. His 26 receiving yards on the day would give him 120 total. Jordan Smart would be North Texas's leading receiver, as he had 3 receptions for 94 yards. On the defensive side, North Texas would be led in tackles by Larry Nixon III. Their junior out of North Richland Hills, Texas, had 10 total for the day. North Texas would not combine for 1 sack or for an interception. However, on the winning end of this matchup, the unranked Boise State Broncos would be led out by their freshman quarterback out of Texas, Taylon Green. Taylon Green threw for 137 yards, as he threw for a touchdown. His 119 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns would add up to what would be 256 yards of offense with 3 total touchdowns. Boise State's leading rusher would be Ashton Jeanty. Their freshman out of Jacksonville, Florida, would finish with 28 carries for 178 yards, as he had a rushing touchdown. Boise State's leading receiver, Latrell Caples, their sophomore out of Lancaster, Texas, finished with 87 receptions on 6 receptions. Boise State's leading tackler would end up being Alexander Tubner. Their junior out of the state of Oregon would finish with 13 tackles total, as he had half of a tackle for loss. DJ Schramm would finish with 11 tackles for Boise State, as they combined for no sacks. Looking at their 2 interceptions, Ezekiel Noah had 6 tackles and a tackle for loss alongside his interception. Jalen Clark would finish with just the interception for the day. With this win, the unranked Boise State Broncos would finish their season with a 10-4 record after having finished with an 8-0 regular season record in their division before losing to Fresno State in the Mountain West Conference. And then, of course, with this loss, unranked North Texas would finish their season with a 7-7 record. Their 6-2 record would tie with Western Kentucky for the second best record in the Conference USA after ranked UTSA. And that, of course, brings us to where we are with bowl season. There's no bowl games today, but of course bowl season will resume tomorrow, as the Myrtle Beach Bowl will take place between UConn and Marshall on ESPN. Looking at what would happen with college basketball, the highest ranked college basketball team that played yesterday would be the top ranked Purdue Boilermakers. They would remain undefeated after beating unranked Davidson 69-61 in the Indy Classic. At home, in Indianapolis, they would outscore Davidson by 7 in the second half, essentially. As on the winning end of this matchup, the top-ranked Purdue Boilermakers were led in scoring by their starting center out of Canada, Zach Edey. Their 7'4" junior would finish with 29 points and 16 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 11 from the field and 11 for 15 from the free throw line. Purdue starting guard Braden Smith had 10 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 31 minutes. He shot 2 for 7 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. Purdue starting forward Caleb Furst had 12 points and 13 rebounds in 25 minutes. He shot 5 for 13 from the field and 2 for 4 from the free throw line. With this win, the top-ranked Purdue Boilermakers remain undefeated at 11-0. And with this loss, unranked Davidson is holding on to a 7-4 record this season. Looking at the second-ranked team in the nation, the Virginia Cavaliers would host the 5th-ranked Houston Cougars, who were the number 1 ranked team. Houston would beat Virginia 69-61 to give Virginia their first loss of the season. Houston won this game on the road by 8 points after outscoring Virginia by 4 in both halves. On the losing end of this matchup, the second-ranked Cavaliers would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Caden Shedrick. He had 16 points in 29 minutes. He would shoot 7 for 8 from the field as he made both of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the 5th-ranked Houston Cougars would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Jarris Walker. Their freshman out of New Freedom, Pennsylvania, would finish with 17 points and 7 rebounds in 39 minutes. He would shoot 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and he would make all 3 of his free throw attempts. With this win on the road, the 5th-ranked Houston Cougars are now 11-1, and with this loss, the second-ranked Virginia Cavaliers are holding on to an 8-1 record. Moving on to the 3rd-ranked team in the nation, UConn would face off against unranked Butler and end up beating Butler in their first conference game this season. UConn won this game 68-46 by 22 points on the road, after they would outscore Butler by 14 in the second half. On the winning end, 3rd-ranked UConn would be led in scoring by their junior out of Bamako, Mali, Adama Sanogo. Sanogo would finish with 27 points, 14 rebounds as well in 31 minutes. Sanogo would shoot 13 for 21 from the field as he made his only 3-pointer on the day. With this win, 3rd-ranked UConn is 12-0. They are now sitting at 1-0 in the Big East, tied with St. John's, Marquette, Providence, and Xavier right now for the best record in conference. With this loss, unranked Butler is 0-1. They are now tied with Seton Hall, Creighton, DePaul, and Georgetown for the worst record in the Big East this season. Now, taking a look at what would be going on with the 4th-ranked team in the nation, Alabama would host the 15th-ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs. Gonzaga would end up giving Alabama their second loss of the year. They would beat Alabama 100-90. They would win this game by 10 after outscoring the Crimson Tide by 10 in both halves. On the losing end, 4th-ranked Alabama would be led in scoring by their freshman starting forward, Brandon Miller, out of Antioch, Tennessee. Brandon Miller would finish with 36 points and 6 rebounds, as well as 6 turnovers for the Crimson Tide in 37 minutes. He shot 12 for 22 from the field, 6 for 11 from 3. He would make all 6 of his free throws for the team. On the winning end of this matchup, 15th-ranked Gonzaga would be led in scoring by their starting forward out of the state of Texas, Drew Timme. Their senior from Richardson would finish with 29 points and 10 rebounds alongside 6 turnovers in 36 minutes. Drew Timme would end up shooting 12 for 18 from the field, and he would shoot 5 for 8 from the free throw line. With this win on the road, the 15th-ranked Gonzaga Bulldogs are holding on to a 9-3 record, and with this loss in the CM Newton Classic, 4th-ranked Alabama is holding on to a 9-2 record so far. Looking at the 6th-ranked team in the nation, Tennessee would face off against 9th-ranked Arizona. Arizona would end up beating Tennessee 75-70 for their 10th win in their first 11 games. Arizona would beat Tennessee 75-70 after they would outscore Tennessee by 5 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, 6th-ranked Tennessee would be led in scoring by their guard off the bench, Zakai Ziegler. He had 21 points and 6 rebounds in 29 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 11 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3. He would make both of his free throw attempts on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, 9th-ranked Arizona was led in scoring by their starting forward out of Lithuania, Azuolas Tubelis. He would finish with 19 points and 9 rebounds in 35 minutes. Tubelis would shoot 7 for 11 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. With this win, the 9th-ranked Arizona Wildcats are 10-1 this year. With this loss, 6th-ranked Tennessee is now 9-2 in basketball this year. Taking a look at what's going on with the 8th-ranked team in the nation, the defending champs Kansas Jayhawks would host the 14th-ranked Indiana Hoosiers. Kansas would beat Indiana's 84-62. They won this game by 22 at home after outscoring the Hoosiers by 15 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, 14th-ranked Indiana was led in scoring by their starting forward Trace Jackson Davis. He had 13 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 blocks in 29 minutes. He would shoot 4 for 11 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, the 8th-ranked defending champs Kansas Jayhawks would be led in scoring by their starting guard Grady Dick. Their freshman guard out of Wichita, Kansas would finish with 20 points, as well as 6 rebounds and 5 steals in 33 minutes. Grady Dick would shoot 8 for 12 from the field, 4 for 5 from 3 as well. Kansas's starting guard in this matchup, Kevin McCullough Jr., had 11 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 steals in 32 minutes, shooting 5 for 11 from the field. Kansas's starting guard, DeJuan Harris Jr., had 10 points, 10 assists, and 3 steals, all in 28 minutes. He would shoot 5 for 8 from the field with over half of the team's assists for the game. With this win, the 8th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks, the defending champs, are 10-1 this season. And with this loss, 14th-ranked Indiana is now holding on to a record of 8-3 this season, as these are two of college basketball's storied programs. Looking at the 10th-ranked basketball team in the nation, the Arkansas Razorbacks would host the unranked Bradley Braves, and Arkansas would beat Bradley 76-57. They won this game by 19 after outscoring the Braves by 12 in the first half. On the winning end of this matchup, 10th-ranked Arkansas would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Jordan Walsh. Their freshman out of DeSoto, Texas, would finish with 18 points and 4 steals as he fouled out in 28 minutes. Walsh would shoot a perfect 7 for 7 from the field as he made his only three-pointer. He would shoot 3 for 4 from the free throw line. With this win, the 10th-ranked Arkansas Razorbacks are 10-1 this year, and with this loss, unranked Bradley is 7-4 now. Jumping out to the 13th-ranked team in the nation, the Kentucky Wildcats would host the 16th-ranked UCLA Bruins in a battle of the Blue Bloods. UCLA would end up beating Kentucky 63-53 in the CBS Sports Classic. They won this game by 10 after outscoring the Kentucky Wildcats by 8 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, 13th-ranked Kentucky would be led in scoring by their forward off the bench, Chris Livingston. He would have 14 points in 25 minutes, shooting 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and he would shoot 2 for 3 from the free throw line as well. On the winning end of this matchup, 16th-ranked UCLA would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Jaime Jaquez Jr. Their senior from Camarillo, California, would finish with 19 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 steals in 37 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 19 from the field as he made his only free throw. With this win, the 16th-ranked UCLA Bruins are 10-2 so far, and with this loss, the 13th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats are now holding on to a 7-3 record. Looking at the 17th-ranked team of the nation, the Mississippi State Bulldogs would host the unranked Nicholls Colonels. Mississippi State would beat Nicholls 68-66 by 2 after outscoring Nicholls by 5 in the second half, as Mississippi State remains undefeated. The 17th-ranked Bulldogs would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Tolu Smith. Their senior out of Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, would finish with 15 points in 8 rebounds as well as 2 steals in 20 minutes. He would shoot 4 for 8 from the field and 7 for 8 from the free throw line. With this win, 17th ranked Mississippi State remains undefeated at 11-0. And with this loss, unranked Nicholls is holding on to a 5-6 record despite almost beating an undefeated team. Looking at the 18th ranked team in the nation, the Illinois Fighting Illini, we're going to host the unranked Alabama A&M Bulldogs. Illinois would beat Alabama A&M by 21. They won it 68-47 after they outscored the Bulldogs by 17 in the first half. On the winning end, 18th ranked Illinois would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Matthew Mayer. Their senior from Austin, Texas, would finish with a total of 21 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 20 minutes. He shot 9 for 12 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. With this win, the 18th ranked Illinois Fighting Illini are 8-3. With this loss, unranked Alabama A&M is now 4-7 at this very point. Looking at the 23rd ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes would go to North Carolina to face off against the unranked North Carolina Tar Heels. North Carolina would beat Ohio State 89-84. They won this game in overtime after outscoring Ohio State by 5, after they would have to force overtime by outscoring Ohio State by 9 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, 23rd ranked Ohio State would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Bryce Sensabaugh. He had 22 points and 8 rebounds in 33 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 17 from the field and 2 for 3 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, unranked North Carolina would be led in scoring by their senior forward, Armando Bacot, out of Richmond, Virginia. He had 28 points and 15 rebounds in 37 minutes. He would shoot 11 for 19 from the field and 6 for 9 from the free throw line. UNC starting guard Caleb Love had 22 points, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 42 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 20 from the field, 4 for 13 from 3, and he would make both of his free throws. UNC starting guard R.J. Davis would finish with 21 points and 8 rebounds as well as 2 steals in 40 minutes. He shot 6 for 13 from the field and 8 for 9 from the free throw line. With this win, the unranked North Carolina Tar Heels are holding on to an 8-4 record, and with this loss, 23rd ranked Ohio State is now 7-3. The 24th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies would host the unranked Grambling Tigers. Virginia Tech would beat Grambling by 26 points after outscoring the Tigers by 17 in the second half. On the winning end of this matchup, 24th ranked Virginia Tech would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Sean Padula. Their sophomore out of Edmond, Oklahoma, would finish with a total of 21 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals, all in 33 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3. He would shoot 7 for 9 from the free throw line. With this win, the 24th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies are now holding on to a record of 11-1. They are undefeated at home. With this loss, unranked Grambling is 6-4. And last but not least, the 25th ranked Miami Hurricanes would host the unranked St. Francis Red Flash from Pennsylvania. Miami would beat St. Francis by 15. They won it 91-76 at home after they would outscore the Red Flash by 15 in the second half. On the winning end of this matchup, 25th ranked Miami would be led in scoring by their junior guard out of New Jersey, Isaiah Wong. He had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks, all in 38 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 18 from the field and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. Miami starting guard Wooga Poplar finished with 20 points and 3 steals, all in 34 minutes. Poplar would shoot 7 for 11 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. He would make all 4 of his free throw attempts. With this win at home, 25th ranked Miami is holding on to an 11-1 record so far as they are undefeated at home. With this loss, unranked St. Francis is holding on to a 3-9 record. Taking a look at what's going on today in college basketball, starting off with what's going on at the very top. 7th ranked Texas is set to host unranked Stanford in the Pac-12 Coast to Coast Challenge. 19th ranked Auburn is going to face off against unranked USC in LA. 21st ranked TCU is going to host unranked Mississippi Valley State, as 11th ranked Baylor is set to host unranked Washington State on ESPN2. Segueing into professional sports, there were 3 NFL games that took place yesterday. The first one would be in Minneapolis, as the Minnesota Vikings would beat the Indianapolis Colts 39-36 in overtime. The Colts were winning this game 33-0 going into the half. The Vikings would outscore the Colts 14-3 in the third quarter as they were trailing 36-14. The Vikings would shut the Colts out 22-0 in the fourth quarter to tie the game up at 36 and then send it into overtime after it was a 64-yard touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins to Dalvin Cook, and then a 2-point conversion to T.J. Hockenson to tie it. It would be a 40-yard field goal from Greg Joseph to win it in overtime in the final seconds, as if he had missed it, it would have resulted in a tie. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Indianapolis Colts would be led out by their starting quarterback and former NFL MVP out of Boston College, Matt Ryan. Ryan would throw for 182 yards and a touchdown. Indy's leading rusher would be Zach Moss. Their running back out of Utah would finish with a total of 81 rushing yards on 24 carries. Indy's leading tackler would be Bobby Okereke. Their linebacker out of Stanford would finish with 12 total tackles on the day. Zaire Franklin would finish with 10. Indianapolis would finish with 7 sacks as a team. 2 of them would come from Dayo Odeyingbo, Indianapolis's defensive end out of Vanderbilt. The team's 2 interceptions would belong to Rodney Thomas II and Julian Blackmon. Julian Blackmon would return his interception for a 17-yard pick six alongside his 4 tackles. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Minnesota Vikings were led out by their starting quarterback, Kirk Cousins. Cousins would throw for 460 yards as he threw 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Minnesota's leading rusher would be their elite running back out of Florida State, Dalvin Cook. He had 17 carries for 95 yards. He had 95 yards on 4 receptions as he had a receiving touchdown. He combined for 190 yards of offense for Minnesota. The Vikings' leading receiver would be KJ Osborne out of Miami. He would finish with 10 receptions for 157 yards and a receiving touchdown. Minnesota's elite wide receiver out of LSU, Justin Jefferson, had 12 receptions for 123 yards as he had a receiving touchdown. Minnesota's leading tackler would be Eric Kendricks. The Vikings linebacker out of UCLA would combine for 12 tackles. He had 4 tackles for loss and one of the team's 3 sacks. Danielle Hunter, the Vikings' elite defensive end, would finish with 5 tackles. He would finish with a sack and a half. And with this win at home, the Minnesota Vikings are holding on to an 11-3 record. With 3 games left in their schedule, they sit 4 games with 4 more wins than the second-place Detroit Lions, as the Minnesota Vikings have locked themselves into a playoff spot. And of course, with this loss on the other end, the Indianapolis Colts are 4-9-1. And of course, considering they have 3 games left in their schedule, they are sitting with 3 less wins than the division-leading Tennessee Titans as things currently stand. Jumping out to Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns would host the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns would beat the Ravens 13-3 after outscoring the Ravens 6-3 in the first half, and then they would shut the Ravens out 7-0 in the second. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Ravens were led out by their starting quarterback out of Utah, Tyler Huntley. Huntley would end up throwing for 138 yards as he threw an interception. He had 15 yards on the ground to give him 153 yards of offense. Baltimore's leading rusher was J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. He had 125 yards on the ground and 3 through the air. That's 128 total. Baltimore's leading tackler on the defensive side would be Roquan Smith. Their linebacker out of Georgia would finish with 11 tackles for the day. The team would combine for 3 sacks as a unit. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Cleveland Browns were led out by their elite starting quarterback, Deshaun Watson out of Clemson. He would complete 18 of his 28 passes as he threw for 161 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 22 yards, which would give him 183 yards total. Cleveland's elite running back out of Georgia, Nick Chubb, had 21 carries for 99 rushing yards. Cleveland's leading tacklers would be John Johnson III and Grant Delpit, as they each had 9 tackles. Grant Delpit would finish with 2 tackles for loss. Cleveland's elite defensive end and former number 1 overall pick, Myles Garrett, would finish with 3 tackles. He would finish with a sack and a half as well as a tackle for loss. Denzel Ward, the Browns' elite corner, would finish with the lone interception of the game. And of course, with this win at home, the Cleveland Browns are holding on to a 6-8 record. As of right now, the Cleveland Browns are holding the third best record in the AFC North. They have 3 less wins than the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are currently sitting on top of the AFC North. And of course, looking at the playoff picture, there is a possible way that they could see themselves possibly clawing into this playoff picture. And then, of course, with this loss, the Baltimore Ravens are 9-5. They have the second best record in the AFC North, as they now are sitting with 1 more loss than the Cincinnati Bengals, who very well can leapfrog them in today's matchup. And then going to the third and final matchup that would take place yesterday, the Buffalo Bills would host the Miami Dolphins, pull off a 32-29 win at home in the snow, and secure a spot for themselves in the playoffs, all in the same game. The Bills would find themselves outscoring the Dolphins 21-13 in the first half. The Dolphins would outscore the Bills 16-11 in the second half. However, the Bills would have to come back. Josh Allen would have to tie the game up on a 5-yard touchdown pass to Dawson Knox, followed by a 2-point conversion. And then Tyler Bass would win the game on the last play with a 25-yard field goal. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Miami Dolphins were led out by their elite starting quarterback out of Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa. He would complete 17 of his 30 passes. He threw for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 7 yards on the ground, as he had 241 total yards of offense. Miami's leading rusher would be Raheem Mostert out of Purdue. He would finish with 17 carries for 136 yards, and then he would have 20 yards through the air. He had 156 total. Miami's leading receiver would be Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. He had 3 receptions for 114 yards, as he had a receiving touchdown. Miami's elite wide receiver Tyreek Hill would finish with 9 receptions for 69 yards, as he had a receiving touchdown. In Miami's defense, their leading tackler would be Kader Cajo. Their cornerback out of Texas A&M Commerce would finish with 7 tackles on the day. The team would combine for 2 sacks, as on the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Buffalo Bills were led out by their elite starting quarterback, Josh Allen. Their elite quarterback out of Wyoming would complete 25 of his 40 passes. He threw for 304 yards, and he threw 4 touchdowns. He was also the Bills' leading rusher with 77 yards on the ground. He had 381 yards of offense. Buffalo's leading receiver would be Dawson Knox. Their tight end out of Ole Miss would finish with 98 total yards of offense and a receiving touchdown. Their elite wide receiver, Stephon Diggs, had 5 receptions for 60 yards. Their leading tacklers would be Matt Milano and their elite linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds, as they both combined for 8 each. With this win, the Buffalo Bills are holding on to an 11-3 record. That is the best record in the AFC East, as they now have 3 more wins than the second-place Dolphins. And yep, the Dolphins right there, 3 less wins than the Buffalo Bills. However, with this record, the Buffalo Bills are now out in the lead for the AFC right now, putting the pressure on Kansas City to win, but they have already clinched a playoff spot, as the Dolphins are still definitely fighting for their spot, but they're still in the playoff spot for right now. Taking a look at what's going on today in the NFL, I guess starting from the very top, the New Orleans Saints are set to host the Atlanta Falcons. The Chicago Bears are going to host the Eagles. The New York Jets are setting to host the Detroit Lions. The Carolina Panthers are ready to host the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jacksonville Jaguars are set to host the Dallas Cowboys. The Houston Texans, holding the worst record in football, are going to host the Kansas City Chiefs. In Mile High City, the Denver Broncos are going to host the Arizona Cardinals. Later in the day, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to host the Patriots. The LA Chargers are going to host the Titans, and the Buccaneers are set to host the defending AFC champs, the Cincinnati Bengals, as the Bengals look to take the division lead after the Ravens lost. And then in primetime tonight, the 7-5-1 Washington Commanders are set to host the 7-5-1 New York Giants, with Monday Night Football still to go tomorrow. Taking a look at what was happened in the NHL, as there was a lot of NHL action. The Boston Bruins would host the Columbus Blue Jackets at home and pick up a 4-2 win. They would end up winning this matchup after scoring 2 goals as a unit in the third period. They would break the 1-1 tie, however, in the second period off of the goal from David Krejci, his 9th goal of the season. The top star would be Patrice Bergeron, Boston center, as David Pastrnak, Boston's right winger, would finish with a goal and an assist. With this win at home, the Boston Bruins are now 24-4-2. As of right now, the Bruins' 50 points in 30 games is the best record in the Atlantic Division. It is the best record in the East, and as a matter of fact, they are currently holding the best record in the NHL, the first team to cross the 50-point threshold. They sit 5 points ahead of the Western Conference leading Vegas Golden Knights, and they sit 6 points ahead of the second place Toronto Maple Leafs in their division and the Metropolitan Division leading New Jersey Devils. With this win, the Bruins they've won 7 of their last 10 games to date, and with this loss, the Columbus Blue Jackets are 10-18-2. Their 22 points in 30 games is the worst record in the entire Eastern Conference. The Chicago Blackhawks and the Anaheim Ducks are the 2 teams in the NHL that have worse records than the Blue Hawks, as they both sit out west. They have 22 less points than the division-leading New Jersey Devils and Carolina Hurricanes. The Blue Jackets are currently on a 3-game losing streak at the moment, as they've now lost 7 of their last 10 games to date. Jumping out to Detroit, the Red Wings would host the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa would end up beating Detroit 6-3 on the road, thanks to their 3 goals that they would score on in the third period, as the score was tied at 3. The go-ahead goal from Ottawa to give him the outright lead would be scored from Claude Giroux, his 13th of the season, on a power play. The top star would be Ottawa's right winger, Drake Batherson, out of Canada. He would finish with 2 goals. Ottawa's left winger, Brady Tkachuk, would finish with the second star as he had 2 assists, and Alex DeBrincat would get the third star as he had 3 assists for the Ottawa Senators. With this win on the road, the Ottawa Senators are holding on to a 14-14-2 record. As of right now, their 30 points in 31 games ties them with the Montreal Canadiens for the worst record in the Atlantic Division. And with this loss, the Detroit Red Wings are holding on to a 13-11-6 record. Jumping out to Edmonton, the Oilers would host the visiting Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks would beat the Oilers 4-3, as they are now 1 win away from double digits. They would break the 3-3 tie off of John Klingberg's 4th goal of the season. The top star would be Anaheim's goalie Lukas Dostal out of the Czech Republic, as he had 46 saves, although he did allow 3 to the Oilers. The second star would be Edmonton center Connor McDavid, as he had a goal and an assist. Ryan Strome, Anaheim center, would finish with a goal and assist, as well as the third star. With this win on the road, the Anaheim Ducks are now 9-20-3, and with this loss at home, the Edmonton Oilers are 17-14-1. Jumping out to North Carolina, the Hurricanes would host the Central Division leading Dallas Stars. In a game that went to overtime, Carolina would beat Dallas 5-4. They would take the lead off of Martin Necas' 13th goal of the season. They actually won it in overtime. Necas would be the top star of the game, as Carolina's center out of the Czech Republic would have a goal and an assist to his name. Carolina's right winger, Teuvo Teravainen, finished with a goal and an assist as well. Carolina's defender, Brent Burns, will get the third star, as he had a couple of assists. With this win at home to a very solid team, the Carolina Hurricanes are now 18-6-6, and with this loss in overtime, the Dallas Stars are now 18-8-6. Jumping out to Montreal, the Canadiens would host the defending back-to-back-to-back Eastern Conference champs Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning would beat the Canadiens 5-1 after scoring the first 4 goals of the game. The top star will go to Brandon Hagel, Tampa Bay's left winger out of Canada, as he had 2 goals and an assist. Tampa Bay center Steven Stamkos will get the second star, as he had a couple of assists himself. With this win, the Tampa Bay Lightning are now 29-1, as in 20 wins, 9 draws, and a loss. And with this loss, the Montreal Canadiens are holding on to a 14-15-2 record. Jumping out to New Jersey, the Devils would host the Florida Panthers. The Panthers would beat up on the Devils as the Devils would suffer their 5th straight loss in the NHL. The Panthers would score the first 2 goals of this game as New Jersey was unable to take the lead. The top star would go to Florida's center, Sam Reinhart, out of Vancouver. He would finish with 2 goals. New Jersey's left winger, Erik Haula, would finish with the second star as he had a goal and an assist. Florida's defender, Aaron Ekblad, finished with 2 assists as he had the 3rd star of the game. With this win on the road, the Florida Panthers are 15-13-4. And with this loss at home, the New Jersey Devils are 21-8-2. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the Flyers would host the New York Rangers. The Rangers would beat the Flyers 6-3. Even though the Flyers would score a goal in every single period, the Rangers take the outright lead in the second period off of Keandre Miller's second goal of the season. Keandre Miller, New York's defender out of Hopkins, Minnesota, would be the top star of the game. New York center Mika Zibanejad would finish with 2 assists to get the second star of the game. With this win on the road, the New York Rangers are holding on to a 17-10-5 record. And with this loss, the Philadelphia Flyers are 10-15-7. Jumping out to Washington, D.C., the Capitals would see their defender Erik Gustafsson score a hat trick as the Capitals beat the Maple Leafs 5-2 at home. He would score 3 goals, getting the top star. Washington's left winger, Sonny Milano, would finish with 3 assists. As with this win at home, the Washington Capitals are now holding on to an NHL record of 16-13-4. With this loss, the Toronto Maple Leafs are now 19-7-6. Jumping out to Phoenix, the Arizona Coyotes would host the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres would beat the Coyotes 5-2. After the score was tied 2-2, Arizona even kept the lead at one point. The Buffalo Sabres would take the outright lead off of Tage Thompson's 25th goal of the season off of a power play. Buffalo's left winger out of Toronto, Jeff Skinner, would get the top star with his 2 goals and an assist. Tage Thompson would finish with a goal and 2 assists for the team, as of course Tage Thompson is from Phoenix, Arizona, playing against his hometown team. With this win on the road, the Buffalo Sabres are 15-14-2, and with this loss, the Arizona Coyotes are 10-15-4. Looking at the defending champs, the Colorado Avalanche would host the Nashville Predators and pull away with a 3-1 win at home. After scoring the first 2 goals of the game, they would basically run away with it. The top star would be Colorado center out of St. John's in Canada, Alex Newhook. He would finish with a goal, as with this win at home, the defending champs Colorado Avalanche are 16-11-2. With this loss, the Nashville Predators are 12-13-4. Jumping out to the Canadian Southwest, the Vancouver Canucks would host the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets would beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-1, as the Winnipeg Jets would see the Canucks score their lone goal in just the 3rd period of this particular outing. In this matchup, the top star would go to Winnipeg's left winger, Pierre-Luc Dubois, out of Saint-Agathe-des-Monts in Quebec. So, of course, he would be the top star, finishing with his 3 assists. Winnipeg's left winger, Kyle Connor, got the second star with a goal and an assist, and Winnipeg center, Sam Gagner, finished with a goal and an assist and the 3rd star. With this win on the road, the Winnipeg Jets are now 29-1, and with this loss, the Vancouver Canucks are 13-4-3. Jumping out to Las Vegas, the Vegas Golden Knights would host the New York Islanders. The Islanders would go on and beat the Knights in this particular matchup. They won it 5-2. After scoring a goal in the first, they would score 2 goals in the second and third, respectively. After the score was tied at 1, the Islanders would take the outright lead off of Hudson Fasching's second goal of the season, New York's goalie, Semyon Varlamov out of Russia would be the top star, as he would allow 2 goals but finish with 35 saves. Riley Smith, the right winger from Vegas, would finish with both of the team's goals as he got the second star. With this win on the road, the New York Islanders now hold an NHL record of 18-13-1. With this loss, the Vegas Golden Knights are 22-10-1. And then last but not least, in Los Angeles, the LA Kings would host the San Jose Sharks. The Kings would win this game in a shootout thanks to Trevor Moore's goal, as the top star would go to LA's defender Mikey Anderson out of Minnesota. The second star would then go to San Jose's right winger Timo Meier, as he had a goal and an assist. With this win at home, the LA Kings are now holding on to a NHL record of 17-12-5. With this loss in the shootout, the San Jose Sharks are 10-16-6. Jumping out to the NBA, the LA Clippers would host the Washington Wizards and run away with a 102-93 win. They won by 9 at home after they outscored the Wizards by 12 in the fourth quarter. They outscored the Wizards by 16 in the second half. On the losing end, the visiting Wizards they were led in scoring by their starting center Kristaps Porzingis. The former lottery pick would finish with 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 steals in 35 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 19 from the field and 3 for 4 from the free throw line. Washington starting small forward Denny Avdija finished with 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists as he nearly fouled out in 37 minutes. Denny would shoot 3 for 8 from the field and make all 4 of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown LA Clippers would be led in scoring by their goated starting small forward, Kawhi Leonard, out of San Diego State. He would finish with 31 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 12 for 26 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 5 for 8 from the free throw line. LA starting small forward Marcus Morris Sr. had 10 points and 12 rebounds as he nearly fouled out in 33 minutes. He would shoot 4 for 10 from the field and 1 for 2 from the free throw line. LA's shooting guard off the bench, Luke Kennard out of Duke, had 20 points in 29 minutes. He would shoot 7 for 12 from the field as he would shoot 4 for 6 from 3 and 2 for 3 from the free throw line. With this win, the LA Clippers are now 18-4, and with this loss, the Washington Wizards are now 11-9. Taking a look at what would happen in San Antonio, the Spurs would face off against the Miami Heat in Mexico City. The Heat would beat the Spurs 111-101. They won this game by 10 after outscoring the Spurs by 14 in the fourth quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Spurs were led in scoring by their starting their starting small forward out of Kentucky, Keldon Johnson. He had 22 points in 33 minutes. He would shoot 6 for 14 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and make all 7 of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the visiting Miami Heat would be led in scoring by their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler finished with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 34 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 15 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 7 for 10 from the free throw line. Miami starting center, Bam Adebayo, had 22 points and 13 rebounds in 36 minutes. He would shoot 11 for 18 from the field. Miami starting point guard out of Kentucky, Tyler Hero, had 21 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 38 minutes. He would shoot 6 for 16 from the field and make all 6 of his free throws. With this win, the Miami Heat are now 16-5, and with this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are now holding on to a record of 9-20. Jumping out to what's going on in Cleveland, the Cavaliers would host the Dallas Mavericks. In this Cavs-Mavs matchup, the Cavaliers would win this game in overtime, 100-99, after outscoring the Mavs 4-3 in the overtime period. On the losing end, the Mavericks would be led in scoring by their starting point guard out of UConn, Kemba Walker. He had 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists in 42 minutes. He would shoot 12 for 25 from the field, 4 for 13 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the free throw line. Dallas' starting forward, Christian Wood, had 26 points, 14 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 43 minutes. He shot 9 for 18 from the field, 5 for 13 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Cleveland Cavaliers would be led in scoring by their elite starting small forward, Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell had 25 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in 42 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 21 from the field, 1 for 9 from 3, and 6 for 9 from the free throw line. Cleveland starting point guard out of Vanderbilt, Darius Garland, had 18 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 steals in 44 minutes. Garland would shoot 8 for 18 from the field and 1 for 2 from the free throw line. And with this win at home, the Cavaliers are now holding on to a 20-11 record. And with this loss, the Cavaliers now sit at 500 at 15-15. Looking at another Texas team, the Houston Rockets would host the Portland Trailblazers from up north. The Blazers would end up beating the Rockets 107-95. They would win this game by 12 on the road after outscoring the Rockets by 14 in the third quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Rockets would be led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Jalen Green. Their former number 2 overall pick would finish with 15 points and 5 rebounds in 31 minutes. He would shoot 5 for 16 from the field and 5 for 9 from the free throw line. On the winning end of this matchup, the visiting Portland Trailblazers were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Anthony Simons. He had 32 points in 2 steals, all in 33 minutes. He would shoot 11 for 21 from the field, 5 for 14 from 3, and he made all 5 of his free throws. He had 2 assists in this game. And of course, the Trailblazers' elite starting point guard, Damian Lillard, would finish with 25 points, 3 rebounds, 10 assists, and 2 steals in 33 minutes. Lillard would shoot 7 for 20 from the field, 5 for 13 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the free throw line. The Trailblazers were led out also by their starting shooting guard, Josh Hart. He had 12 points and 13 rebounds in 31 minutes. He would lead the team in rebounds and have the most rebounds in the game. He would go on and shoot 5 for 6 from the field. He made his only 3-pointers. He would make his only free throw as well. With this win on the road, the Trailblazers are 17-13. And with this loss at home, the Houston Rockets are now holding on to a 9-20 record. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Bucks would host the Utah Jazz. The Bucks would pick up yet another win as they are 2 losses away from double digits. They would beat the Jazz 123-97 at home. They won this game by 26 after they would outscore the Jazz by 17 points in the fourth quarter alone. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Jazz were led in scoring by their starting power forward, Lauri Markkanen, as well as their shooting guard off the bench, Malik Beasley. Markkanen had 18 points in 28 minutes, shooting 7 for 12 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and making his only free throw. Malik Beasley had 18 points in 28 minutes, shooting 6 for 13 from the field. All of his makes came from 3. He was 6 for 10. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Milwaukee Bucks would be led in scoring by their starting forward, Bobby Portis. He had 22 points and 14 rebounds in 30 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he would make both of his free throws. Milwaukee's starting point guard, Drew Holiday out of UCLA, had 21 points and 8 assists in 27 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 16 from the field and 3 for 6 from 3. With this win at home, the Milwaukee Bucks are now holding on to a 21-8 record as they've only lost 3 of their first 17 home games this season. With this loss, the Utah Jazz are now holding on to a 17-15 record. Jumping out to Oklahoma City, the Thunder would host the Memphis Grizzlies, who came in with the best record in the West. The Thunder would end the Grizzlies' winning streak as the Thunder would beat them 115-109. They would win this game by 6 after outscoring the Grizzlies by 17 in the second quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Grizzlies were led in scoring by their starting small forward out of Oregon, Dillon Brooks. Brooks would finish with 32 points and 4 rebounds in 37 minutes. He would shoot 10 for 24 from the field, 6 for 15 from 3, and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Memphis' elite starting point guard, John Morant, had 6 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in 16 minutes. He would shoot 3 for 10 from the field. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Thunder would be led in scoring by their starting guard, Luguentz Dort. He had 24 points and 7 rebounds in 31 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 14 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and 5 for 8 from the free throw line. Oklahoma City starting shooting guard Isaiah Joe had 23 points in 26 minutes, shooting 7 for 12 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. With this win, the OKC Thunder are 12-18, and with this loss, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 9-10. With this loss, now every single team in the Western Conference has now picked up a double-digit amount of losses, leaving only the Boston Celtics and right now the Milwaukee Bucks out east. Taking a look at what would happen in Phoenix, last but not least, the Suns would host the Pelicans. The Suns would beat the Pelicans 118 to 114 as Devin Booker would put together yet another amazing scoring performance. But in this matchup, the Suns would win this game by 4 after they outscored the Pelicans by 12 in the third and then by 9 in the fourth, by 21 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the visiting Pelicans were led in scoring by their elite starting power forward and former number 1 overall pick, Zion Williamson. He had 30 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 turnovers in 39 minutes. Zion would shoot 7 for 15 from the field and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. New Orleans starting shooting guard CJ McCollum out of Lehigh would finish with 27 total points as he had 8 assists. In the 36 minutes he played, he shot 11 for 19 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and he would make his only free throw. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Phoenix Suns were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Kentucky, Devin Booker. Booker would finish with 58 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in 42 minutes. He would shoot 21 for 35 from the field, 6 for 12 from 3, and 10 for 15 from the line. The Suns' elite starting point guard and future Hall of Famer Chris Paul, he had 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists in 35 minutes, shooting 6 for 11 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. With this win, the hometown Phoenix Suns are 18-12 through their first 30 games, with 1 more loss than the Pelicans, as the Pelicans sit at 18-11. There's a lot going on today in the NBA, but just taking you through it, the Boston Celtics are going to host the Orlando Magic. The Indiana Pacers are set to host the New York Knicks, who are holding on to the longest winning streak in the NBA. The Pistons are going to host the Nets, as the Nets are on quite a winning streak themselves. The Raptors are going to host the defending champs Golden State Warriors, and the Timberwolves are set to host the Chicago Bulls. And not last but not least, of course, the Nuggets are going to host the Hornets. The Lakers are set to host the Washington Wizards as well. That is all I have for you for today, Sunday, December 18th, 2022. I do have an individual profile that I do plan on putting up today, and I will follow it up after this. Thanks for listening. I hope all is well. I want to apologize for all the names that I butchered. I do plan on getting better, and I do want to thank the FIFA, the NCAA, the NFL, NHL, and NBA sites for giving me all the facts and figures, because, of course, I can't just make these numbers up myself. Thanks for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace out.